Chapter 54. One should not be deceived. Great spirits are skeptics. Zarathustra is a skeptic. Strength, freedom which is born of the strength and overstrength of the spirit, proves itself by skepticism. Men of conviction are not worthy of the least consideration in fundamental questions of value and disvalue. Convictions are prisons. Such men do not look far enough, they do not look beneath themselves. But to be permitted to join in the discussion of value and disvalue, one must see 500 convictions beneath oneself, behind oneself. A spirit who wants great things, who also wants the means to them, is necessarily a skeptic. Freedom from all kinds of convictions, to be able to see freely, is part of strength. Great passion, the ground and the power of his existence, even more enlightened, even more despotic than he is himself, employs his whole intellect. It makes him unhesitating. It gives him courage even for unholy means. Under certain circumstances, it does not begrudge him convictions. Conviction as a means. Many things are attained only by means of a conviction. Great passion uses and uses up convictions. It does not succumb to them. It knows itself sovereign. Conversely, the need for faith, for some kind of unconditional yes and no, this carnalism, if one will forgive me this word, is a need born of weakness. The man of faith, the believer of every kind, is necessarily a dependent man, one who cannot posit himself as an end, one who cannot posit any end at all by himself. The believer does not belong to himself. He can only be a means. He must be used up. He requires somebody to use him up. His instinct gives the highest honor to a morality of self-abnegation. Everything persuades him in this direction. His prudence, his experience, his vanity. Every kind of faith is itself an expression of self-abnegation, of self-alienation. If one considers how necessary most people find something regulatory, which will bind them from without and tie them down, how compulsion, slavery in a higher sense, is the sole and ultimate condition under which the more weak-willed human being, woman in particular, can prosper, then one will also understand conviction, faith. The man of conviction has his backbone in it. Not to see many things, to be impartial at no point, to be party through and through, to have a strict and necessary perspective in all questions of value. This alone makes it possible for this kind of human being to exist at all. But with this they are the opposite, the antagonists of what is truthful, of truth. The believer is not free to have any conscience at all for questions of true and untrue. To have integrity on this point would at once destroy him. The pathological condition of his perspective turns the convinced into fanatics. Savonarola, Luther, Rousseau, Robespierre, Saint-Simon, the opposition type of the strong spirit who has become free. Yet the grand pose of these sick spirits, these epileptics of the concept, makes an impression on the great mass. The fanatics are picturesque. Mankind prefers to see gestures rather than to hear reasons. Chapter 55. One step further in the psychology of conviction of faith. Long ago I posed the problem whether convictions are not more dangerous than lies as enemies of truth. Human all too human, 1 Aphorisms 54 and 483. Now I should like to ask the decisive question: is there any contrast at all between a lie and a conviction? All the world believes there is, but what does all the world not believe? Every conviction has its history, its preliminary forms, its trials and errors. It becomes a conviction after not having been one for a long time, and after scarcely having been one for an even longer time. How could not the lie be among these embryonic forms of conviction? Sometimes a mere change of person suffices. In the son, that becomes conviction, which in the father still was a lie. By lie I mean wishing not to see something that one does see, wishing not to see something as one sees it. Whether the lie takes place before witnesses or without witnesses does not matter. The most common lie is that which one lies to oneself. The most common lie is that with which one lies to oneself. Lying to others is relatively an exception. Now, this wishing not to see what one does see, this wishing not to see as one sees, is almost the first condition for all who are party in any sense. Of necessity, the party man becomes a liar. German historiography, for example, is convinced that Rome represented despotism and that the Germanic tribes brought the spirit of freedom into the world. Blah, blah, blah. What is the difference between this conviction and a lie? May one still be surprised when all parties, as well as the German historians, instinctively employ the big words of morality, that morality almost continues to exist because the party man of every description needs it at every moment. This is our conviction. We confess it before all the world. We live and die for it. Respect for all who have convictions. I've heard that sort of thing even out of the mouths of anti-Semites. On the contrary, gentlemen, an anti-Semite certainly is not any more decent because he lies as a matter of principle. The priests are much more delicate in such matters, and they understand very well the objection which lies in the concept of a conviction, namely a mendaciousness which is a matter of principle because it serves an end. So they have accepted the clever procedure of the Jews to introduce at this point the concept of God, will of God, revelation of God. Kant, too, with his categorical imperative, was on the same path. In this respect, his reason became practical. There are questions in which man is not entitled to a decision about truth and untruth. All the highest questions, all the highest value problems lie beyond human reason. To comprehend the limits of reason, that alone is truly philosophy. What did God give man revelation for? Would God have done something superfluous? Man is not capable of knowing by himself what is good and evil, therefore God taught him his will. Moral, the priest does not lie. The question of true and untrue does not exist in the matters about which priests speak. These matters do not allow one to lie at all. For to be able to lie, one would have to be capable of deciding what is true here. But of this, man is not capable. Thus the priest is merely the mouthpiece of God. Such a priestly syllogism is by no means merely Jewish and Christian. The right to lie and the shrewdness of revelation belong to the priestly type, to the decadent priests as well as to the priests of paganism. Pagans are all those who say yes to life, for whom God is the word for the great yes to all things. The law, the will of God, the holy book, inspiration, all mere words for the conditions under which the priest attains power, with which the priest preserves his power. These concepts are found at the basis of all priestly organizations, of all forms of priestly or philosophic priestly rule. The holy lie, common to Confucius, the law of Manu, Muhammad, the Christian church, is not absent in Plato. Truth is there. This means wherever it is announced, the priest lies.